Hey guys, so before we get into today's video, you might have noticed that I am a huge fan of Dr. Jordan Peterson. Peterson is a renowned psychologist who brings the language and perspective of psychology to exploring the ideas that have shaped our society, especially the ideas of the Judeo-Christian tradition.
What? Are you saying that no one is really an atheist deep down?
I didn't say no one was.
Okay.
I said that most of the people who claim to be atheists aren't. So this is why I like Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment.
He has tons of content on YouTube that any person of any faith or political persuasion should check out. If you want to start, I suggest looking for videos of him talking about God or about the Bible for a good taste of his unique and powerful perspective. Is just the subject of our identity as men. Like, what does it mean to be a man in the context of the gospel?
Yeah.
Let's and maybe that's a big one, but I'd like to kind of delve into that a little bit with you. I mean, if someone were to ask you that question, what does it mean to be a man in the gospel? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. And I think this is the biggest question that we could answer in the context of an elders quorum, because we have such a deep theology and doctrine about this concept of identity and what it means to be a man. And a lot of times I think we think we figured it out, but again, we're missing it. The identity is at the core of, I mean, it's at everything we do in the restored gospel. I mean, the new name, we receive a new name at baptism. We go to the temple, receive a new name. Like, there's something about identity that is being endowed upon us, and it is remarkable. But we sometimes go through the motions and just think, I'm just doing the things, but we miss the deeper concept that can really ignite the heart of man to continue on down a covenant relationship with God.
So it's funny. It was Dr. Jordan Peterson that I was listening to who brought up this concept of identity, because we talk about identity, but if you actually want to ask the deeper question, you have to ask the question, what do we even mean by identity? Like, what are we talking about? And he had this analogy that I thought was absolutely brilliant. It finally, in my mind, made sense. And I want to get your thoughts on this, that your identity, I'll just say it kind of short and then I'll kind of talk about it, but your identity is your relationship to the game that you're playing. So for instance, if you are a catcher on a baseball team, everyone's playing baseball, and you're the catcher, you know what your role is in the game.
Yeah.
Your identity tells you, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I have this part in this worthwhile game that we're trying to play. And so we all interact with each other as human beings in this game that we call baseball. And something really beautiful and wonderful comes out of this game, right?
Yeah.
So the problem is we live in this culture that says no one should define your identity. You just go out there, and it's like telling your kid, Timmy, you go out there on the baseball diamond and don't you let anybody tell you who you are or what you have to do. And so you got Timmy out there in the outfield, he's jumping around and and it's like he's playing unicorn while we're all playing baseball.
Right. Yeah.
And in a society of moral relativism, where an expressive individualism that just says, hey, be whatever you want to be, you end up in a situation where you have a bunch of kids out on the baseball diamond running around, not knowing what the heck they're doing there. Purposeless, meaningless, and eventually they all get bored and are like, what are we doing here? Where right. If you're on the field that's designed for baseball, you're supposed to play baseball. And so when you take that concept and you morph it into the idea of, well, what's the game that a man is playing? What's the game that a father is playing? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And I think the gospel is uniquely qualified to give us our understanding of the game, the biggest game of all.
Right.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
And this is why this has to be done in the context of theism, that there needs to be a divine guide who's bestowing identity, right? And this is where I think a lot of people in the world of Jordan Peterson and the Stoics sometimes take a left turn and end up in this sort of, it's often framed as toxic masculinity, right? I'm a man's man and nobody's going to tell me what to do. And I'm going to get in there and get the sale and, have the Ferrari and this and that, because there was no breath of then turning to God and saying, okay, I think I know who I am, but who do you think I am? And that's why not only do we need a theistic context, we need a Latter-day Saint context. Like the restored gospel is the most powerful tradition to bestow identity because of our faith traditions, that we build up to this moment where we go to a temple, to a castle, and receive a royal charge, right? And then not only are we the catcher on the field, what if you are royalty in the world?
Yeah.
How does that impact how you act and move forward?
And unlike other faith traditions, it's gender specific.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is that men and women play a different position in a game. Now they are, you can't say, well, we don't need the catcher on our baseball team,
right,
or we don't need the pitcher.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you need both of them.
Yeah.
They're going to do different things. They have different places in the kingdom. They have different roles. They have different natures, but they both are essential to the game, and neither one can be neglected. And It's interesting because I want to go real quick to a clip that I actually had that I wanted to play from the Bishop Barron interview that we were talking about last video, and specifically talk about, I think this, when you're your own man, so if you're an expressive individualist, which basically means, look, the world is your oyster. You can kind of do whatever you want in the world, right? The baseball diamond's out there, but just play whatever game you want. It kind of leads to this world that I believe, and I think Bishop Barron talks about, kind of leads you to either hedonism, where you do whatever the heck you want on the baseball diamond, but then eventually you get bored. And then you end up realizing there's no game to even be played here. It's all just make-believe nonsense. And then you sink into the hole of nihilism. And I thought he made some interesting commentary about this in relation to our society. So I'll pull up this clip.
See, it's much needed because we live, and that's the nihilistic thing. There are no values. I just make it up as I go along. Don't tell me what to do. I'm my own boss. See, all of that is just deadly. As I've often said, it's like saying, just give me that 5-iron and I'll swing it any way I want to. And well, you'll be the worst golfer in America, right? Give me that violin. Don't tell me how to play it. I'll just figure it out. Well, unless you're a genius. Maybe you're a genius. By the way, Aristotle called that a godlike man. It's very interesting. He had that category, that there might be a godlike man that doesn't even need to be habituated because he just is, he's virtuous off the scale. But they said, look, that's so rare. Let's not even bother talking about it, right? So we can fall into that sort of weird, like, just give me the violin because I'm just, I'm Itzhak Perlman by some miracle. No, but 99.9% of us need a lot of habituation in order to internalize the virtues of playing a violin. Same with the moral life, which is why nihilism and all that is a complete disaster. What's hedonism? But just what gives me pleasure. That's all that matters. Well, yeah, then you'll live like a child. That's the way a 3-year-old lives. That's why we have to discipline kids and move them along. You know that, raising your own kids. If we just left them to their own devices, they'd be 30-year-old hedonists. Plenty of them, by the way, right? There are plenty of them, by the way, in the world that were never disciplined, never brought into a moral consciousness. And so just please me, whatever gives.
Again, to that, I think he's hitting exactly what we were just talking about with that baseball diamond analogy. But this is the funny thing that theism brings to the table. If you're on the baseball diamond, you can do whatever you want, and eventually you get bored and sink into nihilism. That's the hedonism and nihilism problem. But what the moral life implies is that there is an actual design to the field that you're on. There's a game that you're supposed to be playing to reach your full fulfillment. And that is to say that our conscious lives are the world that we exist in, including not only the physical, but let's say the metaphysical and the spiritual, that they are real and that they are ordered. And that in order to find your fulfillment, you have to align with this order. So again, like you're saying, theism takes you to a step where that is actually possible to be in such a designed place. But our tradition in particular goes into the direct nature of you as a man and says, here's your role. And this is where you'll find fulfillment.
Yeah, it not only reveals your role or identity, but it reveals the game that you're playing, right? That this is baseball. And look how dynamic it is when it works. And and going back to the first session, this misframing we often hear in the church of, just keep the commandments and you'll be happy. Right now, of course, it's a great model, speaking generally, it's a great model to find happiness and fulfillment in life. And what happens though is individuals leave the church and they think they told me I'd never be happy out here, but I'm quite happy. And my critique is like, yeah, you will be happy and you may be happy for a while, but it will not last. And I know you don't believe me, but at some point that suffering will come and you won't know how to reconcile suffering. You will have no God to give it to and to surrender it so that he can strengthen you and return you to the field for that suffering. Right. And
ultimately they say, I'm happy, but do you live in isolation? Like maybe I'm happy doing things that are actually really bad for my family, really bad for the society. Because the game that we're playing isn't just your game. See, that's one of the things I don't like about sort of the expressive individualist worldview. It pretends that you are the center of the universe, but you're not. At the end of the day, there are other people, and the perfect game is the one that maximizes everything for everyone forever. Mm-hmm. And so that's that's sort of the other issue that I get into with sort of the people that want to go down that route without recognizing it. But at the same time, there can be too much sort of rigid conformity. Baseball has rules, but within the game of baseball, it doesn't mean that you have to do things the exact same way every time. A baseball game or a football game or whatever game you're playing, they're dynamic. Mm-hmm. And the gospel, like, yeah, the rule says, don't cheat on your wife, right? Like there's a rule. It's hard and fast. You know what I'm saying? But some men allow even just the culture of the church to stifle their ability to express themselves at all.
Right.
And I think that's the other sort of extreme of it. And Jordan Peterson talks about kind of too much order, right? Or too much chaos. Too much chaos, there's no rules at all. And too much order is sort of like the game that we're playing has so many rules that there's no chance to actually express your courage on the field because there's a rule on how high you can jump or how fast you can run or, those kinds of things. Yeah. And so I think that there's a balance there.
Absolutely.
So do you enjoy the content here on Thoughtful Faith? If so, be sure to hit the notification bell. This ensures that our new videos show up on your feed. Also, be sure to check out our Facebook group called Thoughtful Saints, where myself and others discuss the sorts of topics found on this channel. And lastly, if you think other people would benefit from this video, please be sure to share it.